More to Marketing. Welcome to More to Marketing, the podcast that explores marketing, product, and everything business. I'm your host today, Susan Walsh, and we're going to be talking about how to achieve organic, sustainable growth for your business, and particularly for a new business. Now, I have a very exciting guest today, Annika Welander, the Managing Director and co-owner of Some Oddpilots, a Chicago-based creative agency known for its innovative work and has worked with brands, and I know you'll know a lot of these, Patagonia, Saucony, Dyson, Herman Miller, just to name a few. Now, since co-founding the agency back in 2006, so she's definitely been around and done a lot, Annika has led strategy, operations, and also client relationships, and particularly championing that intersection of design and culture. Now, she also keeps busy by being the co-founder of Public Works Gallery, which supports accessible and provocative cultural projects. With a BA in English Literature and also Film Studies from Princeton University, no less, Annika brings deep expertise in art direction, brand storytelling, and also creative leadership to every project she works on. And I think that's an essential thing to understand about Annika is she has got this deep foundation in all types of art in different forms, how to bring it to life, and then how to bring it to brands to make them stand out and be different. And that's how she helps with all this organic, sustainable growth. But anyway, I've talked enough. I want to meet Annika right now. Hello.
Hello, Susan. Thank you so much for having me on today.
I'm so excited to have you here. I'm wanting to know more about these cultural projects you've been working on too, but tell us more about your story, what you've been doing, how you've gotten to where you are now.
Yeah, that's great. I'd love to. So a little bit about me. First, maybe I'll say a bit more about the agency. That was a fantastic introduction, but yeah, at this point, Someoddpilot is we're a brand and creative agency based in Chicago. We're fully independently owned, so owned by myself and my business partner, Chris Eikens here. We actually started as a record label, interestingly, and we got our footing as a creative studio within the indie music scene in Chicago and then out broader nationally as well. So we started off doing websites for, cool music venues and, indie record labels. We did Pitchfork Music's Identity in their first website, RIP, they went to Condé Nast and are no longer, unfortunately. And that that segued pretty naturally to us working with a lot of apparel brands and other companies that were basically looking to us to say, okay, you guys seem to know how to do it, but how do we authentically talk to these cool kids essentially that you guys are already attracting with all of your insider knowledge in the music space. So that's a little bit about the origin of Some Oddpilot. We these days we're focusing more on kind of brand transformation. So digging in deeply with our clients' businesses, affecting everything from a brand or a company's positioning to their product, to their brand identity, to campaigns. So but we still have our footing in music. We're actually working on developing a giant new music festival that's very hush hush and NDA'd, but we still have our roots in music as well. Yes, tell me about me. So as I was saying, I wasn't really particularly interested in getting into this industry. It kind of happened accidentally. So I grew up in Chicago. I went out to school. While I was at school, as you mentioned, I studied English and film, and I became, basically movie obsessed. And weirdly, I became sort of obsessed. I loved watching movie trailers and kind of digging into everything that I could get my hands on around that and storytelling in that regard. So much so that I did my senior thesis at Princeton on how auteur filmmakers, how they construct brands through the creative worlds that they build throughout their filmography, and how value is kind of constructed through that process. This idea of cultural capital and creative capital getting built through filmmaking. So that was what I was really interested in an academic sense. And I was so lucky because coming out of school, I kind of found my way spending a lot of time in New York. I was out at the clubs and I was getting into the music scene there. But I found my way back to Chicago and I met Chris Eichenseer, who then became my business partner, because he was deeply involved in the music scene as well. And he, as a designer and photographer, was looking for somebody to work with him to grow, to kind of stand up and grow a proper studio and agency. So it was really fortuitous, but it was kind of my love of like the cultural space, music, film, and stuff that led me into the essentially into like advertising and into branding and marketing. So that's a bit of my background of how I got into all of this.
I love it because you followed your passion and it naturally just evolved into a business.
Yeah. Yeah, it was I knew I wanted to do something creative. And I had a lot of friends, senior year of college who were they were taking the meetings with the big consulting agencies and the big, private equity house places and all of that kind of stuff. And I was looking around and I'm like, well, I really want to do something creative, but I did not have the let's say the gumption to go full starving artist, out in Brooklyn right off the bat. So I think what was amazing was that I found kind of a career path that did both. I could work and build a business, but I could also be partaking in creative on a very intimate level every day, which was really exciting for me.
And
Yeah.
I think that's why you've been so successful and been able to truly tap into this organic growth because of that passion behind it. So I'd love to understand from your point of view, what's the difference between, say, the organic growth that you've specialized in and been able to do for all your clients and for your own brand versus those
Hmm.
more traditional inorganic approaches to growth?
Yeah, yeah. That's a great question. I think, it's funny because I've been doing this since 2008, so 17 years almost in this
Just a
business.
few.
And I know that, yeah, just a few, but when you think about, and I have a lot of friends who work in, they work for VCs or they have startups or whatever is happening, in that kind of tech front. There is a lot of strong desire for up and to the right, for like very quick growth, very extreme growth. And that's sort of a demarcation of success, right? The way that we've built this business, we've taken a bit of a different philosophy and approach to it, which was to, you know, do it in a way. I think organic growth to me is for building legacy, I would
Mm.
say. And inorganic growth is more for like capturing territory, is how
Yeah,
I would
that
frame
short
that up.
term. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's great, and they're two different modalities for growth. But the way that we think about it, the way that I think about building cultural capital or creative capital over time, like I was kind of referencing before, like how to build that relevance, that and that meaning that is deep and lasting and
Mm.
strong, I think comes from these kind of organic growth investments. Investing in brand is huge. I think of brand a little bit like it's almost like the miracle of compound interest. Like you and when I talk to clients and when we talk to even investors in the businesses, if we're working with a private equity team that's investing in a business that wants to see a return on their growth in 2, 3, 4, 5 years max, the thing I do try to remind them is, you know, investing in brand in the beginning, it's almost like, being a young person and getting to your first job and being presented with like a 401k and you go, is this really what I want to do right now? Like I could take this money, we can go on vacation, next month. But it's like, no, you just put it away now. And that investment in brand, you're going to see this exponential growth over time. And you don't want to be the company that doesn't invest in brand from the get-go and then you look back 10 years later and you go, wow, like what happened here? Like we really regret not doing that, because what you haven't done is you haven't found a really deep, meaningful place in a consumer's life. You may have had a product that was useful to them that they kind of turn over, but like that that resonant relationship that you could have had with those consumers and that audience, it isn't there because you didn't invest in the meaning behind the company that you're building. So that's kind of how I think about organic growth. It's kind of like another analogy would be, I think like organic growth can feel a bit like it's like it's like a canyon that's carved out by like a river, right? It takes time, but it's there and it's part of the landscape and it's part of the topography. Whereas inorganic growth can be a bit like, a quick like erection of a building, a giant skyscraper. They just have different purposes and in the business landscape, I would say.
I think the key point there for me to take away is the organic growth is that strategic planning of investment. You are investing in your brand. It will have long-term gains, not necessarily short-term. And that's why it's an investment, because if you don't do that, you're not going to stand out from your competitors. You're going to be forgotten quicker, and you're not building that resonant relationship that really is key if you want to have that sustainable organic growth.
Yeah, and it's not, I think, a replacement for you need to do it all. You do need these PR moments, you need these marketing moments, you need spikes, but it's the spikes are more beneficial when they're anchored to something that is deeply true and resonant about that business and brand and product. So it's they do pair with each other, but I think that it's hard when you don't have the anchor because you can have a lot of these spiky moments, but all of a sudden
Yeah.
when your product isn't hot anymore, your consumer acquisition costs jump. Things happen that because you haven't laid that bedrock investment in the beginning. Yeah.
And like you've mentioned, you've had this business for 17 years, Some Oddpilot, but what steps did you take in those early days to seed that organic growth?
Yeah. If we're talking about the agency itself and how we grew this organically, yeah. I think like the first thing was that Chris and I are absolute outright maniacs. Like we refuse to underdeliver, like no matter what. So we have a little saying over here. We say we have coastal aesthetics and Midwest ethics. And that means, in short, for I guess for Americans here, we do it's beautiful work. It's very trendy work. It's on the bleeding edge. But the way we deliver that to clients is by outworking everybody else. And I think that meant a lot of long nights. It meant, like frankly like blurred boundaries between like what we cared about personally, what we cared about professionally. Those things blended, and that's what I mean, it's almost like we had a group of people who were operating in an intensity level that kind of bordered on like collective delusion sometimes, because we're so passionate about what we're doing. And I think that can burn people out, but those who stuck around are now like partners in the business. So it's not for everyone, but that kind of organic growth. I mean, the reason it needed to happen that way is because without the major levers of promotion, let's say, or being picked up and bought or merged into like a larger holding company or something like that, like we have to fight for every person that understands who we are and could recommend us. You have to outfight everybody else to be that referral, And so relationships are huge, outworking everyone, making sure that work is beautiful and delivered on budget, on time. It's so important. And it's really crazy how quickly those things can fall apart if you don't keep your eye on it, So yeah, that was probably the biggest piece in the early days. Yeah.
Awesome.
We also never sold something that we didn't know we could do very, very well already. So that is kind of part of the reason for Public Works, for our gallery and this apparel brand, that our fun thing we do on the side is anything we wanted to get into, we would kind of test first. So if we want to get into production, we're going to go make a bunch of free music videos first. And then we're going to go back to brands and say, hey, this really is a capability set, and we're going to do it so well for you. I think that we've never really done the bolt-on approach. It's always something we have to go learn and live ourselves, so we know that we can show up correctly in everything we're pitching and delivering. Yeah.
I love it. And how have you actually, don't name any names, of course, but what kind of strategies have you done for some of your clients coming through to help them bring that organic mindset into their business for their campaigns and advertising that they've been doing?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think we work, as an example, we work with and I won't name names, so a tequila brand that is really amazing. They're the world's first B Corp tequila. So now you might be able to find them. But they they make a beautiful, amazing product, but they are in just an unbelievably crowded and competitive category. Tequila has been the fastest growing spirit the last couple of years. They've been around for some years, but their product is so beautifully made, and so great. But what they realized was they needed to find, a set of like core passionate consumers, and so they built something. They're building something on the side that is essentially like a membership that unlocks access to a lot of like authentically interesting collaborations and partnerships in the major cities where they're standing this up. So it's not flash in the pan, you know, promotions or influencer strategy. It is, them authentically partnering with these amazing restaurant groups and very cool brands to make product, to make these things available to their members. So they are they're putting their footprint into these cultural spaces outside of, the alcohol world, essentially. Like we have to get them out of almost out of the bars, get them out of the big, the Total Wines and the Binnies and the stores like that. We have to get them into these cultural spaces authentically. So that's been really successful to build that. But that's a grassroots thing. I mean, they're going to do that. It's not going to be at a huge scale right out of the gate. It's going to be something that has to build over time, right? And that's sort of the commitment to doing that kind of organic growth. Another one, and this is something from a little while ago, we were Patagonia's brand activism agency for a decade plus. And that was a great privilege. We learned so much there. And it was so great to see how like our company's values lined up with theirs. But they've always been extremely committed to the planet, to solving things like climate crisis, and in addition to making fantastic product. And they were doing all of these amazing campaigns, right? They would they do 1% for the planet, 100% for the planet. Like they'd be giving away all of their sales on Black Friday, things like that. And these were amazing moves, but it was a lot. Their moves, their singular moves, right? And what we realized was there was an opportunity to connect all of their rabid fan base to all of these NGOs and nonprofits that they separately are supporting and donating to. And how do we connect those two groups together? Like, how do we do something that ties everybody's values and interests together to get action to happen? And so we built something called Patagonia Action Works. And it's a platform that is, digitally based. It functions a bit like almost like an Airbnb or something like that. And you can, on a location basis, find these opportunities to sign petitions, to volunteer, to go to events, to also do skilled volunteering. So if you're an attorney, you're an accountant, you're a designer, you can donate your time as well as your money to help out these amazing organizations. Like over here, we have Friends of the Chicago River. I could go donate my time and work on a campaign for them. And that is super meaningful. So when we talk about organic growth, it's these things that I think are a little, they're probably sometimes they're like last on the list, when you're looking at a marketing budget, but they end up being so fundamentally important to the long term of a business and a brand. Yeah.
And that's building their community and fan base, isn't it? Getting
Yeah,
them engaged
absolutely.
and getting them to have a destination to go to that connects them not just with the brand that they've enjoyed. They're now getting I suppose, a deeper love and appreciation for them to be able to see that they can do their own actions beyond just a purchase.
Totally. That was the idea. And it was really great because they were very adamant that they would not be selling into that system. So you are not, when you're in there and you're thinking about all of these things and you're communicating with people, you're not being sold to at that time, which, I think a lot of companies would have trouble putting up that wall.
Mm.
So yeah, I always thought that was quite impressive.
And that's a fantastic way to start it, to build a true community. Like, yes, over time you'd sneak in some ads over time after you've built the community out,
Sure.
or some
Yeah.
kind of sponsorships, because like events, event tickets, all those kind of things, or whatever it could be in that category. But it's great
Hmm.
that they're able to just have that ability to not do that to start with. And I think that shows
Hmm. Hmm.
where they were trying to do at the beginning, which is amazing.
Hmm.
I love that campaign. That's beautiful. It really is
Thank
beautiful
you.
work that you guys do. But I'd love to know more about. So you've talked about some fantastic, innovative approaches and everything. Can you tell me how important it is to really build those innovative and adaptive teams behind the scenes to fuel this? How do you go about
Hmm.
making sure that your team is ready for it?
Hmm. Yeah. So it's a great question. I think something that is also important to sort of the background of our agency is how much our agency has evolved over the 17 years that I've been working here. As a smaller independent agency, we really did get our start focused more on the kind of down the line work. We were extremely digitally focused at first. We did a ton. I think I mentioned all these like websites we were doing for record labels and things like that. It really was. We really were more of a digital agency, and we built the most gorgeous, beautiful e-commerce sites and digital experiences you could imagine. Chris, my business partner, also a photographer. Part of the reason these things were so amazing is because they reflected the brand so beautifully on, as a channel, an owned channel for the brand, right? But like, this is when, and I don't think this is the case anymore, but this is really, that kind of 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12 time. A website was essentially like the largest retail storefront you have. It still is, but I think like some of the onus on doing content strategy and doing a lot of brand building on websites has moved off. It moved off to social, and then it's moved off elsewhere since then. But the shape of the team that we've had to have over time has changed so much. We used to have a lot of developers on staff. It's not the case. Then we moved and we were making much more in the way of social content. We were doing a ton of production work, and that was all really important. But like what that really meant at that time is we had a lot of people who were working down the line, right? Like people who were excellent, like, fabricators, developers of websites, excellent, imagery touchers and things of that nature. I think what has changed for us pretty drastically, especially kind of like coming back to the studio after COVID and with everything that's happening out in the world and the changes that keep coming from AI and a lot of in-housing and a lot of these big, holdcos kind of crumbling to bits, is that the kind of staff we have to have now are people who are like incredibly curious and incredibly comfortable with like ambiguity and uncertainty and able to learn incredibly quickly and without any kind of like hangups or self-deprecation about the fact that they need to be learning all the time. We're what I look at now and I look across our agency, I see people whose jobs like don't look today like they did a month ago sometimes,
Mm.
which is, can be terrifying. If you are somebody who has spent, 15 years perfecting a craft and then you wake up one day and things have just really, you're like, oh my God, you look around, you go, well, the technology has changed so deeply around these kind of things. I think like the makeup of our company has changed to be people who are highly skilled, but also like just unbelievable generalists who are problem solvers and have as much like emotional and social intelligence as they do the kind of hard skills. And I
Mm.
think that's been a really fascinating kind of shift to our team makeup over here. Um, yeah, so I would say and I think that that's what's happening, across probably, I would imagine, marketing teams as well. I think that these idea of people being in silos, oh, I'm a creative. Oh, I'm a marketing director. I'm in product. Like those walls seem to be breaking down every day, as things move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the key there for the success is because you've got people that are multi-skilled, they're
Hmm.
each bringing different thoughts, so they're not stuck in their own silo, so they can
Yeah.
actually be more creative, and that means that they are so adaptive as well to changes even from client briefs.
Yeah. Yeah. Things move quickly too. There's, I think speed, there's sort of an expectation of speed now. We've always been worked very quickly, but even more now, and because culture is moving at a clip that is almost you almost can't catch your breath. So it's yeah, it's
Particularly if you're
interesting.
wanting to do a trend as well.
I know, yeah, and you got to know it's like for brands they're almost like they're like surfers out there, right? You're looking back and you're looking at the waves coming, and you have to decide like which one of these waves am I going to paddle into and catch
Mm.
because you cannot surf them all. It's not you can't build a brand doing it that way. You can't be on every meme. So yeah.
And there's also those horrible situations where you've put your heart and soul into campaigns, and then something happens in the world where it will make a negative sentiment because of maybe an
Hmm.
association. There's like
Hmm.
there's famous ads out there, like Airbnb, I think it was. They were doing beds that were floating away on water in the air and everything, and
Oh.
it had just been a natural disaster.
Oh
And
yeah.
of course, instead of being this clever campaign about you could float away, enjoy yourself and this great holiday and this great experience, that was not how people felt at that
Uh,
time. So that was the feeling they put against the campaign. So sometimes it
yeah,
may
that's
even
unfortunate.
be that fast change that you need to do because of like external forces.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that you need to on that front, like to be just immersed every day in what's happening is like you can't really put your head down for too long in this kind of business in this industry at this point. I mean, it's a little bit you can be a bit more focused when you are working directly on a deep brand strategy project, let's say. But even then, when you're working through your positioning and white space, that stuff is shifting on a daily basis. It's so easy to stand
Mm.
up a brand these days compared to what it used to be for, as far as startup costs and speed to market. So yeah, you definitely need to keep your head on a swivel. And I think that a great agency partner is almost the antenna, for a brand out there,
Mm.
um, making sure they're getting all this transmissions every day and bringing it back to the home base to the brand. Yeah.
Exactly. And even something as simple as an icon, a logo, they don't always stand still either. They change when trends require it or when a refresh is needed too. Like if you think of some of the biggest brands in the world, Nike has not had the exact same tick the whole time. It has evolved
Mm-hmm.
it just slightly here and there and tinkered with it. But again, keeping their little antennas out, as you say, and being, I suppose, with the people at the time and building that community and changing when needed.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's interesting though. I think that's the right instinct. I do, I don't want to jump on the Jaguar rebrand bandwagon here, but like I do, I just saw that Range Rover, car brands need to stop changing their logos. I would say that's just a piece of advice for everybody out there. Like, stop doing it. Just leave them alone for a minute. The new Range
Or
Rover
do
logo is also,
research, or do deep
yeah,
research before you
I
make
know.
some
I mean, it's
giant
so easy to
jumps.
pile on. But I do, we're working right now with an amazing and I think I can probably possibly talk about them because this will come out a little later, but we're working with one of the most beloved craft breweries in the US, called Three Floyds. They're kind of local here in the Chicago area. They're, top 20 craft brewery in the country. They are, we find a lot of commonalities between how we've run our agency and our point of view and our cultural touch points over here, which were really founded in music, right? And this kind of independent, almost defiant perspective of how we approach our industry, right? They have the same thing going on their side. But we're talking to them. They're amazing people, like just such strong leadership. But when they got going, craft brewing really took off. I mean, there was a point in time in, gosh, 2015, 16,
I remember.
17, where, yeah, where like, the big holding, beer holding companies, AB InBev, Miller Coors, like they were walking around with their checkbook open, flapped open, just ready to sign and to acquire these, because it was like a boom that felt like it was never going to end. And then, things, consumer taste shift. And then a little thing happens called COVID and stuff changes. And, then you come out of COVID and people are done drinking at home and buying beer and things. And,
or they're making their own now because that was their
or they're
hobby during
making, yeah,
COVID.
sure, they're making their own. Or, it's, you see all that happen and you look at them and they genuinely and rightfully ask, that, and us, and we ask ourselves, like, is there, like, can our brand, which is based on extreme quality of craft brewing and also these cultural touch points. I mean, they're like deeply involved in like the metal music scene. They have these roots, while we were in a meeting talking to them the other day, Ozzy Osbourne died and passed away. And like, this is a room full of people that were genuinely deeply affected by that news. Like they're very involved in that community. They throw a festival every year. Super cool. It's like a beer festival and a metal music festival called Dark Lord Day. And it's a huge thing. And people really like do caravan out for it. And, but they look around and they go, does a 23-year-old woman care about Dark Lord Day? Where they can get a very strong beer, these like special strong beers, and listen to metal music. And oh my goodness, is Gen Z even going to drink alcohol anymore? Like it's a real concern that they look at. They're staring down right now. I think there are ways to approach it. I mean, the incorrect way I would be to say you gotta abandon your roots in metal and music, abandon your roots in craft brewing. Like you still have all these facilities. We can shift, we can pivot, we can, really appeal to the seltzer drinking, vape puffing crowd that is coming here. Like we can do all of that. But I think that a better approach is to say, well, what is core and authentic to you guys? Like, what does it mean to be Three Floyds? Are there any viable growth streams here that we can run through the Three Floyds filter and have it come out the other side, both A, appealing to this next generation, but also B, feeling really authentic to who you are? Because this is a group of people that did not take a giant check from one of those big brewers back in the day because they didn't want to. They wanted to keep doing what they're doing. They're independently owned. They're really passionate about it. So I think there are ways to, organically shift and grow and, F it all up, if you will. And there are ways to do it and to stay very true to who you are. But it is a difficult task when you are facing a pretty serious left turn or these kind of headwinds that they're looking at right now. One of the things they did, which I think is brilliant, was they looked around and they said, man, people are drinking our beers and they're drinking them. It's like the first or second beer they'll have because they're delicious and they're kind of like heavier and they have a ton of flavor. But then they're switching to, a Miller Lite. And what can we do? Can we catch those consumers before they switch over? And so they developed something called Floyd's Deluxe, and it's basically like a premium beer, but it's like lives much more in that territory that like, a Budweiser or Miller does, or a Modelo. And it's selling like gangbusters. So they did something that felt like authentic to them, for growth and to kind of shift. Yeah.
I love that because it was looking at what the consumers were doing. How could they get them in a way that was organic because they're already drinking it? Instead of letting them shift, they adapted and were fortunate that they could adapt and create a product that could service and stop them going to another brand.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. And it is beautiful. It fits very, very well into their brand framework.
Now, I know you've mentioned partnerships and marketing. What are some other benefits of going organic over doing things like mass scale marketing, for example? So we've talked a little bit about specific partnerships, but have you had any other successes that you can speak to generally that have worked really well to organically grow either your business or one of your clients, or you've seen something out there that's been amazing too?
Yeah. I'll speak first just about our business, because it's very close to home. I in my position these days, I'm working quite a bit on our business, as well as on our clients. And I think one of the smartest things we did, and I don't think we realized how smart it was when we decided to do it, was to start, to build this side project called Public Works. And it is, both our art gallery, a contemporary art gallery. It's also a community space, and it is also an apparel brand. It sounds like a lot because it is a lot, but it is, it was a place that Chris and I decided we wanted to kind of channel our passions back into something local in Chicago. And, it was started in our old office space. We bought a building in Wicker Park, gosh, right before COVID, which was interesting timing to, really put your roots down physically somewhere. But the beauty and benefit is that the first floor, and we're really, Wicker Park is such a cool neighborhood in Chicago. It's where all the artists used to be, not anymore necessarily, but we're still making a mark here. A lot of music venues. So the first floor of our building is, in addition to being like a photo and video studio, it's a very large footprint. It's also our gallery, and it's an event space, and we have a retail space that's open on the weekends, and we sell our apparel and kind of design objects that we put out in publications. We also sell a lot of things from the community in Chicago, and it has been an amazing differentiator, just for our staff, just to have that to work on. But also when we are in meetings with clients and we are pitching and we are talking about like why us versus somebody else, like there is, when you look across agencies, like it can get a little like likey, like things start to look the same. It's a lot of similar, it's a lot of similar capabilities. We're in a service industry, so a lot of like the differentiation comes from the kind of projects we're briefed on and the work we put out. So having this thing that is like so born of our like authentic passion and interest points has been unbelievable. We've actually picked up quite a bit of business from people just walking in the door. Like I've had people, people come in and they buy a t-shirt, and somehow they figure out very quickly, oh, there's an agency behind this. Or they attend one of, we have a record label too. We restarted the record label. We have these showcase nights. Somebody comes in, they work in a marketing team at the Chicago Fire, the soccer team here in Chicago, and they notice us and they go, wow, this is amazing. So that kind of stuff is, it's hard to run it. It takes a lot of extra time. It's a very much an after hours and weekend activity, but it is so worth it to market our business in particular. So very proud of that. Love that we have that. And then, thinking about organic with our clients, I'm trying to think of a great example there. Let's see. Maybe we could come back to that. I think I need to think a bit more about that.
I think one of the things that I love about the example you've given is it's thinking about the end product, but how to utilize it in a completely different vertical that no one has necessarily done around that area, because it's very area specific, but it can be transcended into digital. So you already have these fantastic creative people there. Why not make your brand its own mug, its own shirt, particularly considering like your brand is so cutting edge, funky, different. It stands out. It's not just like a name printed on there, for example. So by doing things like that, it does make complete sense. And I could even see you using the gallery for some really interesting artists coming through and showcasing things as well. Even now you've got the music started up. I can see you bringing people in and going, okay, let's get 10 artists in the local area to do designs for this up and coming artist, and then you put that in your gallery. I can just picture all these things already.
Yeah, there's a lot of cross pollination that happens. There's so many channels that open up so quickly with something like that. I think a real dream, this we haven't crossed this bridge yet, but a real dream is when one of our brands recognizes the opportunity of harnessing the gallery and the apparel brand and everything, and doing a collaboration with that, because we do have access to a lot of visual artists, a lot of musicians, to your point. Like there is so much richness there. So excited to maybe be able to put that in front of some of our brands at some point as well. Yeah.
I could see that merging super well with even the channel TikTok, for example, and they do the music there, and it gets picked up, and I can visualize all this craziness. It's awesome.
Absolutely, totally.
Now, you've talked about some amazing things that have worked, but what about some things you've seen that haven't worked, that might have missed the mark? What are some things that people should really consider to try and avoid?
Yeah, I think uh, I think that in organic marketing, like vagueness is the ultimate killer. I think when you are especially in a position where you cannot, let's say you're not in a position to outspend and you're not in a position to out yell, let's say. If you are not like a blinking red light in someone's field of sight, you're going to be like invisible, right? So I think, vagueness kills differentiation. Like it's almost like the worst thing a brand or an agency can do is to be people pleasing, to be everything to everyone. I know that's not really like an innovative thing to say necessarily, like you need to target, but the scariest thing for a brand and for an agency is dilution, I would say. In an organic sense, I think anybody is better off rubbing one person the wrong way, let's say, or just kind of not catching a certain group of people than it is to be something that's palatable to everybody.
Particularly if you're
I'm not
organic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not advocating for, doing things that are totally cancelable and offensive or anything like that. But I think, if you are a massive CPG, if you're Coca-Cola, like you're just defending your territory at that point. Like you don't need to, you're not clawing for awareness, you're not, it's not as important. But if you are a smaller brand or an agency like we are, it's stand out or die, basically, and I think that, brands need to be careful.
The perfect example. The beer example you gave.
Exactly.
It's a perfect example of this.
Yeah, because there is the with these headwinds, with a lot of pressure, external pressures comes that can create an environment of fear. Like you're making decisions not based on passion and excitement anymore, but you're making decisions and you're not on the offensive, but you're operating from a defensive posture, and you're a little worried about you start to worry about particular things, and that can cause decision making that is a bit decision by committee. It can, people can accidentally water things down a bit. The perspective gets a little muddied, gets a little thin, and all of a sudden you've lost your core consumer, right? And it's not something that happens like in one day. It's kind of like, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts over time. Like, these decisions, these kind of small acquiescent moments out of like kind of fear of like doing the wrong thing, that leads to that dilution. And I think that that's why, honestly, that is the role that strong brand management has to play for a business. And whether it's an agency or it's one of the brands we work with, or the companies we work with, strong creative direction, strong brand management, and like sometimes that is not the skill set of the marketing team that is in place at the moment. And I think that is when finding an agency like ours is really, really, really important, because you can find a group that can kind of act as brand stewards and really hold the line on quality, hold the line on perspective, point of view. I think it's super important.
Yeah, no, I've actually personally experienced this myself, where I've been I've bought something from a site. I love the brand. I've multi-bought for them over years. But now all of a sudden they've changed their marketing strategy and they're inundating me with emails.
Oh, sure.
And I'm just as out of the blue. That wasn't how they normally did it. I might get one every 2 weeks or something. I was like, oh, that's cool. I don't mind that. Oh, yeah, check that out. No, I don't want to buy this month. Maybe I'll buy next month. But now
Yeah.
because I've got so many, I've just gone cancel. I've just like,
Yeah.
I'm unsubscribed because now you're just annoying me.
Yeah.
And now you're not going to be top of mind in a good way.
Yeah. I think, yeah, when there are revenue pressures on in a big way, and people go into a bit of a panic that are, running these brands, there is a tendency sometimes to really press hard on that down funnel performance marketing, the retargeting, and it is, you stop being a brand that somebody wants to have a relationship with in
Mm,
like in and can like see as to why they want it to fit into their lives. And people don't, we are all like just enormous consumers these days. It's kind of astounding how many brands and objects we can invite into our lives, but there's a limit to it. And
mm,
I think that you have to give people a really good reason to,
yeah,
take that place, to be the car in their life, to be the like go-to t-shirt brand that they love, they buy all the time. Like you have the tequila brand that they love. You have to give them a reason. And, I think there's this kind of like short term, how much blood can we squeeze from the stone, thing that happens when there's a bit of like, revenue panic that's happening.
mm,
And that's when all of a sudden you're hit with these promotional emails. That's when you're hit with a discount constantly. All the products, end up being discounted. That's when you are retargeting to the same audience over and over again. And you eventually kind of wear them out, basically, if you're not refilling the top of the funnel and you want to refill the top of the funnel with exciting brand storytelling that is meaningful and gets people intrigued, right? Like, they'll
exactly.
convert eventually, but you got to refill the top. So I think that's a great example what you just outlined of when, you know, you're not operating from with organic strategy and top brand awareness strategy.
Exactly. I've had so much fun, Annika. I really have. And I have a question I need to ask you, my last one, before I then throw it to you
Okay.
for final thoughts. Now, I did pre warn you. What brand, any brand in the world, best represents you and why? And you can have a couple and you can cheat.
Okay. I did think about this. In fact, I thought about it too much to the point where, it's like, oh, I have no idea anymore. It's a tough question to ask people that work with brands, we take it seriously, but, I realized that I was doing some self-examination and I realized that I actually only have two like totally irrational brands that I am loyal to.
Uh-huh.
And the first one is, and I guess I should mention, or I don't need to mention, but I played golf growing up. I played D1 college golf. Like I'm a golfer. I still play. Anybody who's listening here that lives in Chicago, come play golf with me at some point. But we, but
She can merch you
I
out as well.
exactly perfectly perfect. So Titleist golf balls. I
Mhm.
will only play Titleist golf balls, and it's because I grew up with it. I was given them for free in college, and I genuinely believe, and I know that it might not be true, but in my heart of hearts, I'm like, these are the best golf balls made, and no one, and I could never play a different brand. And it is irrational, but that's what good brand love does. It's irrational decision making, right? But the brand that I relate to the most is also a brand that I grew up with. My family's Swedish. My dad's name is Sven. I was told from a very young age that I was only ever allowed to drive Volvos. That if I
Ah,
ever made a decision that was
interesting.
not a Volvo, that it would have to be a long conversation with my father about why I was not going to be driving a Volvo. And I grew up and we drove, I think at some point we had four fully, like totally beautiful vintage Volvo 240s in our family. We each had one. We were driving around these things. What was it? I was driving a 1989 Volvo station wagon until like 5 years ago. These things last forever. And I'm so proud of it. And um, and I drive a newer Volvo now. I love Volvos. I feel like, I do believe that the 240 was the best car ever built, like mechanically. I wish they were around. They're so boxy and they're so dorky, but I love them so deeply. And I think that there's some kind of like there's like this quiet confidence to Volvo as a brand where when I'm in my Volvo and I'm driving around the city, I think people look at me and they go, well, there's a woman with, good taste and and very sensible.
I have to ask,
Yes.
is it a
Yeah.
plain color or have you like zhuzhed it up outside? Like,
No, these are just basic. Well, frankly, I just wanted like a nice, like a station wagon so I could toss my bike. I road bike too. I throw my bikes, like golf clubs and everything in there. But I am, these are these like functional, safe, design forward vehicles. And like, I really identify with the Volvo brand. I love it. I think that like, that's also how I approach this business too. It's like, how do we, as a leader, it's like, I need to be steady, got to do the long-term thinking. I am the safety. I am the Volvo that everyone sits inside here, right? That we have to drive this car forward, and I got to make sure everyone's safe in here, And so I think it's kind of like this, performance without flash and ego. I think it's probably very Midwestern and very Swedish for me to say that, but like, yeah, Volvo is a brand I still love. I don't care if they resell, all the manufacturing to all these other whatever Chinese companies, yada yada. It's okay. Volvo is still a brand I love. Yeah.
and the great thing about this question, you can't get it wrong.
Yeah, right. Oh, trust me, I was worried. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that about yourself. And I think it makes complete sense as well.
Susan, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you, what brand do you feel that you relate to these days?
Well, I'm a bit of a mixed bag at the moment.
Okay.
So if I had to pick just one, my same go-to is definitely the Virgin brand.
Great.
I love the innovative way. I love the new thinking. I love that there's always different verticals, and that's how I feel like my career is as well. And like I'm
Nice.
very creative as well, and I love to paint and do art and everything like that. So I think, and also it's a challenger. It's always been a challenge, and challenges the right way, but in a fun way too. And I think that represents a bit of my personality too. So
I love it.
Still my go-to at the moment.
Perfect. Well, it's one of the legendary brands, so that's great.
But anything fun or you'd like to add before I do a quick roundup?
Something I was thinking about recently, and I think I won't take too much time, is just for anyone in our industry. I think there's things change. It's really stressful, right? To be working in marketing, to be working in creative and in an agency. And something that I've realized that I've done with my career is, you know, what I've done is created an environment where it's not just like when I think about success and career success, it's not just the work we put out into the world, which is like so deeply important, but it's not everything. It's not just, business success, like business growth or compensation or whatever, those classic kind of like quantitative objective things. But the idea that I can show up every day and I can walk into this studio to this place and I can spend, what is like an actually like kind of like ridiculous amount of time we spend at work, right? Like doing work, and on our careers. I can spend it with people who I like love, who my friends, I get to show up and I get to problem solve with creative tools with my friends all day, 5 days a week. Like that is like that's like that's a type of compensation that like I don't think anybody talks about really anymore. I feel like a lot of that's gone away since COVID too. And I'd say that like in my like limited experience here, I mean, that, not a lot of people have worked in the same place like millennials like that. That's what I am for 17 years. But the reason I have is because like I found a way to be present, and take joy out of like all those times, those seconds, those minutes, those hours add up. But like, what am I doing with all that time and who am I doing it with? So important. So it's something that I have examined recently. And yeah, I think it's like, it really the longer you're working, the more you start to feel the weight of that, I think.
No, I completely concur with that. That sings to my heart as well.
Awesome. Love that.
I'm just going to do a quick roundup of things that I found fascinating today. So, today we were talking about how important it is for businesses to think about organic growth, not just externally, but also internally. So, first off, it's probably a good idea just to understand between organic and inorganic. So, organic in this sense is really building that legacy, having like those deep, meaningful relationships, having a relationship that resonates with whoever it happens to be. But it's also an investment. Organic is being an investment in the brand for the long-term rewards, because you need to invest from day one to be able to reap rewards in day 3, day 5, whatever it is. Where inorganic in this case is more about capturing territory or doing things quickly to get a spike, for it might be a campaign or promotion, but it's not necessarily about building that brand awareness and legacy over time. Now, there are many ways that you can achieve organic growth. And some of the steps that we heard about today was number one, really simple: deliver your promises. If you say you're going to do something, deliver it. And if you can, over deliver it. Because those simple things that you organically build into your product service are going to make that difference and give you a competitive advantage when other people have got problems and are waiting to see what the time versus effort is. So if they can trust you and build that, that's going to help you with your organic growth naturally there too. And it will also help you build relationships. Another part of organic growth is all about what you can do to build loyalty, memberships, or partnerships. And one of the great examples we heard about where organic can be created in a different way is by making an experience. We heard about the fantastic craft brewery that instead of just sticking to just selling it in a bar, like a pub or a bar, they're actually gone out and created their own experience with their diehard fans on who they are connected with. And it happens to be a heavy metal in this instance, but it could be anything. And by having those type of activations, it makes a huge difference to, again, going back to building that community where you've got that investment in that long-term branding. Now, one of the other things I thought was great, and that's the example from Some Oddpilot themselves. So they're a creative agency, but they've diversified what they do because they actually happen to have the building space. So they've actually utilized their people, and they're doing a gallery, they've got a shop, they've got a space that people can hire out. By having that immersiveness availability around them, they're also organically using all of those different tools and assets at their disposal in a different way, but still building into that legacy again. And when you look at the company itself, some companies, if you got the opportunity and the ability to organically have people in there that are multi-skilled, because they're going to share and care and be more deeply involved with the company itself. And that's also for the organic long-term growth too. But having said all this, these are all the great positives. There are some things to avoid. Vagueness does kill differentiation. That is what's really going to need to be avoided if you want to make sure that you've got something that stands out for that long-term investment. It's also, if you're an agency or even if you're at that company, don't get disillusioned. Don't open your eyes, look for opinions, because being in your lane for so long, you can get blinkers on. And it's important not to have them on if you want to have that growth. And also, don't let fear guide you. Just because a new competitor's come in or something else has happened, don't let that dictate your choices. Do the research, work with the right agencies, get the right partners involved. Have I missed anything? Anything you'd
Oh,
like
that's a
to add?
fantastic overview.
Wonderful.
No, I
Thank you.
think that's great. Thank you so much, Susan.
Well, tell everyone how they can follow you and know more about your different businesses as well.
Okay, yeah. So on LinkedIn, you can just I might be the only one, I'm not sure, but you can look up Annika Welander. Hit that connect button on LinkedIn and I'll gladly accept. And then you can find our agency at Someoddpilot.com. Same thing on Instagram. Our handle is Someoddpilot, spelled SOMEODDPILOT. Would be great to get to know you guys.
Fantastic. And I'll make sure all of that is included in the show notes. Annika, I've loved our conversation today. Everyone else, don't forget to add more to marketing to your playlist so you don't miss out on more future fabulous guests. more to marketing.